Morning, Falcons fans. Welcome to J Mike's Missives on YouTube. I wanted to respond this morning to a few of the concerns voiced by many fans about the Falcons' lack of movement during free agency. Today being Monday, March 2nd, free agency starting at midnight on February 27th. So we went through this first weekend of free agency and saw a lot of Falcons players who were free agents move on to other teams. Keith Brooking, a notable example after 11 years in Atlanta, moving on to Dallas. Arthur Blank saying he will always be a Falcon and just complimenting him on all the different things he did for the organization. Dominique Foxworth, Michael Boley, two other starters who have moved on and signed contracts with other teams. And I can understand where this gets a little nerve-wracking, a little scary, but it's important for everyone to realize that free agency is, as we often joke about with Mike Smith and Thomas Dimitroff using this word, but it is a process. And I came into the office on Saturday for a little bit, and there were a lot of cars here, a lot of Falcons personnel, just working into the night, trying to monitor what was going on in free agency. And free agency is a lot like a gamble. You don't really know what's going to happen. It's kind of like the NCAA basketball tournament. It changes almost constantly, and you have to adapt and move on. But Thomas Dimitroff said at the draft the Falcons weren't going to be major players, so it's really no surprise that some of these big names have gone off the board. Some of these big defensive tackles that were out there, Albert Haynesworth, for example, going on the first day, some of the corners who could have been available probably getting signed. But it's important to keep in mind that it's a system-based defense and offense here. And when you take a free agent, you're bringing him from another system, and you have to train him to fit into yours. And you have to consider market value and how much the person is going to make involved with that too. And think about the key role players the Falcons already have re-signed. Justin Peele, a key pass-catching tight end who will be back. Coy Wire, who pretty much was a co-starter with Michael Boley there at the end of the season, has come back to secure that linebacker spot and possibly compete for a starting job. Lawyer Malloy is gone, but Jamal Fudge, a guy who started for Malloy in one game and who is expected to compete for the starting job at strong safety, is back. So the Falcons have focused early on re-signing their own players. And remember that there was a lot of value to be had later in free agency. Jason Elam, who many would argue was one of the best free agent pickups for the Falcons last year, wasn't signed until March 21st. Kendall Moorhead, a reserve defensive tackle, also signed later in free agency last year. So I know it's hard, it's kind of tough when you see these other teams out spending money, but the draft is very deep on defense where the Falcons have some needs and some spaces to fill. Thomas Dimitroff makes his money doing that and evaluating that draft talent as well. So I'll leave you with this. My grandfather used to always say that silence is probably a virtue, one that I don't really have, but patience is also a virtue. So on this Monday going into this week, I encourage everyone to keep that in mind.